So team, welcome back to the continuation, day 3 for the QTP training. So we will continue from where we left on day 2. I hope you had a good weekend, and now let's get started with the remaining sessions. Okay, so just a quick note for people who have not able to hear me. Some of the participants cannot, I guess. I'm going to copy this and put it up here. All right, so I've did that. All right, team, good. So quick summary, we were working on the salary calculator, correct? And what we did was to automate one scenario, basically be able to enter multiple information and get the output. And that's where we started to build a QTP test. In that process, we're going to learn about scripting, we're going to learn about objects, repositories, the properties, and slowly get into few more details of functions, how we read and write from Excel and so on. All right, team. So quick check before I move forward, please. I still see a few of you saying that you cannot hear. Is this good now? Any better? Yes? All right, cool. So what did we do so far, team? We've prepared our test plan. We created a scenario that we test. What is the scenario? A beginning to ending testing that results in a result saying that scenario is a pass or a fail. So what we're trying to do here is take multiple sets of input data and put it into the application and see how it performs, right? Then we started to identify the objects and added them to the repository. We started to go through our vbscript. We did create a few variables. So I would say about 20% of it is done. There's a lot more to variable creation and parameterization that we will learn. So now I'm going to do a Control O and open the previous test that we created. Right? So when I open the test through QTP, I will get the script. But along with it will come the object repository and everything associated with it. If you try and do the same thing in the folder, you will see that as a regular Windows folder. And when you double click on that, all you see are different files and so on, okay, that are related with this. You are not needed to go into any of these and look at them directly, because everything that you need will come through the QTP user interface, the thing that you look and you work with. However, sometimes you may want to go into certain folders and look at the script. So for this specific PC2 test, if you want to see the script that you see out here right now, you can go to the action 1 and right click here and open with a notepad, the script.mts. That is the Mercury test script. That is the .mts is Mercury test script. Mercury was the initial creator for the tool, which HP bought over and started calling it as HP Quick Test Professional. All right, team. So we have our object repository, we have some of the script returns and so on. Now, what have we been experimenting till so far is that how do we write the code, some basic structure of code, the where part and the what part, then what values do we put? Instead of putting the values here, what we said is, let's take the value and create them as variables. How did we do that? We said, here is the name of the variable, and in that we started to put values into it, right, team? And now when we execute it, we would see the application performing those steps. And for each of them, we've also put the comments. Right? So now a very, very important step that is needed for you to know, team, is something called as the debug. Okay. What is this debug process and how does it really help us to go forward? 1 second, team. All right. So the debug process, here is what is happening. Okay. As part of our automation, we are testing to see how the application behaves. But as part of the automation itself, you have a lot of scripts that you're writing. So you're doing coding. When you do coding, you are bound to get some errors that come up, right? The reason you and I get to test applications is the development activities that get done sometimes are not always foolproof. They come out with defects, and that's what we got to identify. And the defects are also called as bugs in this script or in the system. Now, to identify and rectify them, we have this feature within QTP called as the debug feature. It is a very, very essential part of your learning. Okay, this is what will help you to identify how is it going. So debug, all that you see under here will help you to resolve issues. Now, couple of important things. Let's say that I want the script to run to a specific step and then pause out there. That is what you use breakpoints for. Okay, breakpoints are like the stop signs where you go, you look left, right, and then move forward. Correct? They're like your stop signs at your traffic signals. Now, if I say that before we execute line 11, if I want QTP to stop the execution, then not stop, but at least pause for some time, I can click on this gray area on line 11. What it does, just a left click, okay, is it creates a breakpoint here. What is a breakpoint? When I execute now, the run will happen, but on line 11, it will pause for our next actions. Okay, then I can do the same. Before clicking on the go, I can put another breakpoint. So the script, when it executes, it will stop at line 11 and at line 25. Now let's see how that happens. All I'm going to do is run. But before I do that, let me save this as a different version. The reason I do different versions, team, because when you go back and review the videos, and most of the members are only doing the video program, so they are able to look at the scripts as these are being executed. Okay, so we're going to save this and we will run this now. So now if you see, the execution has happened, but in the status out here is called as break. What QTP has done here is it has executed everything till line 11, but it is waiting for our instruction to go beyond line 11. So if I hit run at this point, it will continue to execute the remaining points till it comes to line 25. And that's what breakpoints do. So breakpoints are important concept of your debugging process where you're trying to identify where defects are occurring in your system, and we'll use it very widely. But when you do your actual testing, after you go through that entire procedure, when you run it, you'll take away these breakpoints. Why? Because you'll have multiple sets of data. Your test can take very long. You don't intend to be sitting in front of the system when this happens. Right? You will try and be productive doing something else. So it has to happen automatically on the background. Now line 25. Okay. So if I hit run from here, what it does is it will continue to execute the test. All right. How do we use breakpoints now? One of the most essential components of breakpoints is that you will have hundreds of lines of codes of test, and you will see that as we grow this, grow into these sessions day by day, and you will, as you create pieces, there'll be different areas that you know is working. Then there are new areas that you're inserting. So you'll create breakpoints for those new areas so that only that part is getting executed. And you're waiting for the new areas and go step by step from there. The other important concept in the debug is something called as a step into. Okay. This is a very, very essential team. What this does is it is almost like creating a breakpoint at every step. Okay, step into, when I click on this, it will do the same run, but what it will do is it will go one step at a time. It will not go on doing it. So now if you see this, it is ready to execute line 2. It has not yet executed line 2. Why is it not trying to do line 1? It is a comment, so you don't need to really do anything with that. Okay, so if I need to execute line 2, all I do is click on the step into. So now it completes line 2 and goes to the next step. As it happens, you will see things are being performed either on the application and so on. Any idea, team, why is my Internet Explorer not open at this point in time? Team, any idea why is my Internet Explorer not open at this point in time? Right, we have not come to line 8 and we didn't put it anything in record and run settings that open it when run starts, right? So once it comes here, that's when it will open it. What is the difference between breakpoint and wait? Wait will exactly wait for 3 seconds at that line and go forward. Breakpoint will wait for you to hit run, stop, or step into, till then it will not proceed. Okay. At this point in time, you will see there's something called as a data table view here. It might change because these are customizable views. So you can expand them, minimize them, close them all out, and so on. While I'm on the break, okay, if I go to view, and you will see different things that you can view. Okay, one of the most essential things that you should keep a watch on is the debug viewer. Do you see this? Now, when I click on the debug viewer, what you will see are the most important things, the variables out here. Do you see the variables? Here is where all the variables that you created will be displayed for you. Okay, it will say the name of the variable, the value in it, and the type. We'll come to the type very shortly. Now, what do you see as a name? vSalary, the value 110,000, which is correct, and string is the type. What is type string? String is the most basic type of a variable. Again, I go back to the idea of a contact in your mobile phone. Okay, your name is a string, or your email address is a string, because it can contain any character, a text or a number, and so on. Anything it can contain. Your name may not contain numbers, but your email IDs may contain a number, right? So any characters that is treated as a simple text is called as a string. Okay, but isn't 110,000 a number? Then why is it treated as a string? As I told you, anything can be treated as a string as long as there is an open and an end quote to it. Okay, do you see this? There is an open quote and an end quote. That is the reason it is a string. But now, why is only vSalary appearing here? Why is vStatus not appearing here? As each line is getting executed, QTP is allocating that memory, creating that name of the variable, identifying the value that is put into it, and assigning the type. So if I say step into at this point, what will happen? Line 3 will get executed. And you would see at the end, the new variable created, a new value created, and a type given to it. Now what will happen with VDEP dependence thing? If I click on it, let's see what happens. VDEP, do you see 2 with the quotes? No. What does it mean? It is a string. Okay, so, right? It doesn't have quotes. So what does it mean? It's a string. No, it is not. If it is having quote, open and end quotes, then it is a string. If it doesn't have any quote, it is treated as something else. And in this case, it is just a pure number. And the type of this number is integer. What is the difference between an integer and other numbers? Integer are positive or negative numbers that do not have any decimal spaces in them. Okay, I don't want to write my dependence as 2.5 or 3.1 or something like that, correct? It is 0, 1, 2 or 3, and these are integer numbers. That is why any number it sees which doesn't have decimals, QTP will automatically treat that as an integer. There are only 3 or 4 different data types that we need to worry about. Okay, not even worry, that we need to be aware. Once you're aware, as you practice along with watching these videos, you will master things, team. It is not about learning. You are going to master QTP. That is the whole intent of it. Now, what will happen with VDED? Will it be a string or will it be an integer? Now, as I execute it, you will see it got generated. It has quotes. It's a string. So what it did is it has put values into it. Now it is all about experimenting. What will happen if I put ABC out here somewhere? Instead of 10, I'll put A. What will happen? What will happen if I take these quotes out? What will happen if I put 2.0? What will happen if I put a decimal here and something else? So you have to experiment and see. You have to play around the tool. This tool is a great thing to play around with, experiment and see what's going to happen. Now, at this point, my Internet Explorer get launched and navigated to that. So you see exactly what is happening with each step, and that's why your debug feature is very important. Now, what does this statement do? Identify where the salary web edit field in that page salary calculator in the browser IE is, and then set, that's the method, vSalary. Now, what is the value of vSalary? You see it here. So you should take 110,000 and put it here. Let's see if it does that. There you go. It does put the value. Now, what does the next one do? Wait for 3 seconds. See, it's waiting. Now it will go to line 15. Now, again, it will put again another value. Why did we put wait statement, team? Any idea why we put wait statement? Number one, to show you how a wait statement works, but more importantly, to make the test run slowly. No, it is not to synchronize and all that. Do not jump the gun. You are trying to jump into something else. Be very clear about what it is doing. Wait is waiting, that's it. It is not synchronizing, nothing. In this case, we used it so that we can see what's happening in a slow manner. When we did it initially and when we did the run, it was getting executed too quickly, right? Now, let's keep going that way. So another wait, and it is continuing to take the values and put them inside that. See, when I'm doing debug run, I'm already going slow. So why do I need the wait statements? I don't. What should I do? Let's go and delete it. Okay. How are we slowly expanding on this test? Look at it. That's the whole intent, you know. So now stop. Now that I've introduced you to these concepts, you will start to realize that, you know, these are great concepts to work with. Now let's take off this breakpoint. Let's take off this breakpoint, but delete these waits. Okay. We haven't come to capture the results and so on. So I'm taking this off. Your wait statement also helps you to identify where a fault may be lying in your script team. It is all about that. Whenever we're doing it, the first thing we have to identify is our script correct? If our script is not correct, we are not even worthy to go forward with testing an application. That's the most important. Now let's look at where we are. So we did some amount of parameterization, I'll say 40%. Did we do debug? Yeah, we just introduced it. So about, let's say 25%. Now we're talking loops and conditions. So what is this whole loops and conditions all about? It is, I am not trying to put these steps as a method of teaching something, okay? I am trying to get to my solution of creating a data-driven framework where I can take different sets of data and put it in the application. As process of developing this project in a real-time kind of an environment, we are trying to learn these different concepts, okay? Now, what is the issue? Why did I even create these variables? The reason I created the variables is that what is the whole purpose of this? Is it efficient, reusable, accurate? That is the intent of your automation. Is this an efficient test team? No. Why is it not efficient? Every time I want to test, I will go here, take this data, go here, put that data here, execute the test, and keep repeating it. Am I saving time? No. Rather, I can take this and put it directly in the application, correct? But now we will get into something different. Okay, we will get into something called as loop statements. What is a loop? Number one, the loop is about repeating something. Okay, it's going to do something, circle around, come back to the same starting point. Do something, circle around, come back to the same starting point. How will we do loops within QTP? One of the most famous ways, in fact, there are only a couple of ways to do it, but one of the most famous ways is to use a for loop. Okay, how does a for loop work? So let's keep this test aside and open a new test. Control N and talk about a for loop. Now, what happened? Now, what is a for next? What for next does is, if I say there is a variable, let's say variable count, v count, okay? The two next came in, and I say equals 1 to 10. Now, what this does is it repeats whatever is between for and next, starting with number 1 till number 10, each time increasing it by a value of 10. Now, let's say I want something to come out. One thing I can do is I can put something called as a print statement. What does a print statement does? Very simple, team. Do anything new, right? Do a F1 on it. Keep your cursor on it and do a F1. Okay. What F1 does is it gets your QTP help up. QTP help is good reference tool. Okay. It's not a good learning tool. As you watch or as you practice and as you explore, whenever you see something new or you have a question, do F1. You will see an explanation, a more English and a more standard explanation for it. Okay, what a print statement does. See, it does certain thing. What it does is nothing but it will open up a dialog box on the side and it will start to show messages. And if I write here hello, okay, And now just execute this. But before that, let's put it here and say for loop. Save and run. Now let's see what happens. Do you see this? This is the print log. Your print statement generates something called as a print log. This is the dialog box that I said comes out. Now what happened is it printed the word hello, which we gave here 10 different times in this print log. That is what this print statement does. Okay. Why did it do it 10 times? Because we started from here till there. Now let's say I start with 11 and go to 20. Now what will it do? Close the old print log, otherwise it will start to do it from here. And let's rerun this. Okay, it does the same thing. The only difference is where are you counting from. You can count from 11 to 20 or 1 to 10. It's still 10 times because the counter is starting from that number to that number. Now if I do the same thing and say print v count, now what will happen, team? Now what will happen? What will come 10 times? It will print 11 hello, 12 hello, 13 hello, 14 hello, and so on 10 different times. Now let's see what happens. Run this. What do I get? V count hello, V count hello, V count hello. Why do I get V count? Isn't V count a variable? Yes, then why is it not printing? We don't know. How do you identify what is the problem with it? Debug your code. How do we debug the code? You go to debug and say step into. Now you will exactly understand how it's going to work. But before the execution starts, let's close the old print log. And now I'm going to hit on step into. What does step into do, team? It's one step at a time. So it will go to the fur and it will come here. Do you see this? As soon as it encountered v count, it treated that as a variable. It put the value as 11. Is this a string or an integer, team? 11. It doesn't have quotes, so it is an integer. And in fact, it can only be integer because you're counting integers. You're not counting decimals or strings. You can only count the numbers. Okay. So 11 to 20. Your v count is 11, integer. Now, what should v count do? It should print 11. Why is it printing v count? Because if you give anything in quotes, QTP doesn't care what is inside the quotes. It will take it as is and use it. Okay, it will take information as is and use it. Now, so it's print v count hello. Now when it comes to next, what it does, it goes back to the next statement inside the for loop, which is the next statement, first statement inside the for loop, and that's your step number 3. Okay, and now do you see the value of v count? It has changed to 12. Okay, you keep going forward and it will keep printing, but every time it is doing the same thing. If I give anything in quotes, it will do that. If I want the value of the variable, we have to take the count quotes off. Save it, run. Now, why did I even show you all this? The reason I showed this to you is how a for loop works. Now let's go back and open our old script. Now what is my intent? My intent is I want all of these things to happen multiple number of times. What are those things? I want to take different values. I want to open up Internet Explorer. I want to enter those values and close the browser at the end. Let's say we want to repeat it 3 different times. So what I will do is very simple. I'll say for v count. That's fine. We'll stick with v count equals 3 different times. What should it be, team? 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 or 10 to what 12 and so on, whatever, it doesn't matter. Now will it do it? Will it repeat this entire code 3 times? It will not. Why it won't? It will only repeat whatever is inside here those number of times. What does that mean? Take your entire code, cut it and put it inside here. Now what you see is that you have your main code, okay, and which is inside a for loop. Now let's save this first. Okay, that's fine. I want to keep it that way. Now, just for a better reading perspective, what we're going to do is let's structure things together. Otherwise, it looks very untidy. Number one, these are all one set of information, correct? So clicking the go button is one. So instead of saying enter the salary and all that, team, at length, I will say, this is easy, right? Enter the input data. Okay, now let's take off these comments. Now it's easy for us to understand, right? Even if you have a question, we can look at it. But the good part is we have the variables and the object names, defined in a way that it is really easy for us. Okay, now you see the code, little more easy to look at. We're opening the browser here, we're entering the input data in these 4 steps, we're clicking on the go button. These are still not done, then we're closing the browser, correct? And all of these things are inside a for loop. Now what I will do is I'll select this and hit 1 or 2 tabs. Why did I do that? It is easy for someone to read through your code. When you come back and read it, as your code lines grow, it becomes more and more complex to handle it. Okay, so it's very important to organize yourself in such a fashion that it is easy for you to review what's happening. That is one of the very, very critical aspects, the maintenance of your scripts. And these small things, how you name it, how you organize it, is very important. Okay, is it select plus tab? Yeah, so what I did is select and then I hit a tab button. So if I want to reduce that indentation, I'll do shift tab and then it'll keep going backwards. Okay, so now let's save this and run this. Let's see what happens. What do I do, team? What do I do when a run error comes? Anyone? Very important question. My question is not what is the problem. My question is, what do I do when a run error comes? Good. Debug is a good answer. Debug is a very nice answer, team. But when you get a run error, what do? You don't stop and go into debug or click debug here. It doesn't make sense. The first thing you do is identify where is it occurring, right? Then look at what is the error. Try and find out what could be a possible cause for it. See if you know a solution to it. Implement that solution. Test it again and see if it works. If it works, great. Or repeat the process. Try an alternate solution. That are the steps, team. Okay. Anyone who jumps these does not become a master at these things, especially when you start with it. When you get your expertise, you are quickly able to identify what it is. Till then, just follow the process. Where is it occurring? Line 2. Where is line 2? Out here. Okay. Parameterization. Type mismatch. Parameter. What is this? Why is this happening now? Sorry. What could have caused it? What could have probably caused it is, what is that parameterization word? It must have been my comment that I put there. Then what happened to the apostrophe? Probably when I was cutting and pasting, that could have got deleted accidentally. What do? I can stop it, go back and correct that code. Okay. What I'll do a control M for it. Okay. So you can go in front of the apostrophe and organize it better for yourself. Now what will happen, team? It will execute this. How many times? 3 times. Let's see if it does it. See, now I've deleted the wait statements. I don't need to see it. I put the wait statements to see how was it going on. Now I don't want to see it. So IE open, values, is it entering it? Let's see. Looks like yes, go, done. Now what should it do? Close the browser. Once it is done, once it loads up, then it's going to close the browser. Now it will open it again and repeat the process. So team, do you think we can do something better on this? What I'm saying is, do I really need to close and open the browser for every time? That is number one. Second thing is, it is doing the exact same thing every time. What is the point in it? What is my intent? My intent is to take different sets of values and test how the application behaves. Correct? But this is doing exactly the same thing, repeating every time. Number one. Number two is, do I really need to open the browser and close it every time? That's where your efficiency and improving your scripts come into it. Now, for example, if I say that let's open the browser only once. So cut this code. Okay. I don't need too many blank lines. Go to the first line and say, here is where, oops, here is where I'm going to open the browser. Now, instead of indenting this, do a shift tab on it. Why do you do a shift tab? Because this is one line. This is the main for loop. This is next. Every other code is within that, is inside that for loop. Even closing the browser, I may not need to do it. Here, what will I do? I will put it here, but do a shift. Keep your shift pressed in and then tab, hit tab. Okay, so you're moving that code left. Now what we've done is we have created, see, so many views are there that we can close. A little bit more efficient. Now, what is the next challenge? The next challenge is, what is the whole point of taking the same set of data and putting it in the application? We also know that this is random, but at least for my testing purpose, testing my code, not testing the application. We are still trying to test our code. Let's change something that can be changed. What can I change in this easily? Let's do a debug. I think we'll know. So I'll save this, put a breakpoint on line 4 and hit a run. Why did I put a breakpoint on line 4? I want it to get executed in line 4 and then stop. Now let's look at our variables. What are all the variables as I execute till line 12? V count is 1, V salary is this, V state is married joint, V dep is 2, V dependence is 750, correct? Now, what is the only thing that will change team? Let me put a breakpoint on line 6. To take off that earlier breakpoint, I'm going to click again on that breakpoint. Okay, so that will take away. Now, when I run it, what is the next time what changed? The only thing variable that changed was V count. Now, shall we take V count and put it in here just to test and see what will happen? Okay, what am I saying? Instead of the earlier statement which we have here, I will put a new statement here saying VDEP equals V count. Okay, now what I've done is I am saying let's take the dependents and put the value of V count into it. Okay, now let's execute this test and see what happens. So let's take this breakpoint here. Let's put it here. Okay, save. So the first time it should select dependents as 1. Now let's see what it selects. Deem, do you hear any static at my end? Any static noise at my end? No, because I can hear a little cracking noise. Now I've got another issue, team. See, whenever you change a code, a new error will pop up. And this is what you have to master. Okay, this is what you have to get really better at. What is the issue? How do we fix it? Line 15. What is on line 15? Browser IE.page blah blah web edit deduction dot set to VDED. Okay. What is VDED? Oh no, I'm not looking at deduction. I'm looking at the wrong line. Sorry. Line 15 is dependence, VDEP. Okay. Invalid procedure call or argument. What does that mean? Invalid procedure call or argument. That is number 1. Okay. The second thing is, why is it occurring? Is it because I don't know the probable cause for it? I don't understand this error message. Now let's try and experiment around what it is. What is this VDEP, the name of the variable? Hey, but that is VDEP with a capital D, correct? The right thing to do is first correct that. You never know what is the monster that is causing that error. Okay, so let's correct that and try and do another set of execution now. Now what is the issue? Yeah. So for people who've identified it, that's fine. I don't want the solution. I want the process to get to the solution. That is most important. It is not about giving you the fish. It is about teaching you to fish, team. Okay. Invalid, same thing. So what did it mean? No big help. Now what I can do is I can go to the debug mode. Do you see this? What it does is it just starts to display the variables and all that. When you're generally doing a run, it will not. Now, what is there in VDEP? VDP is empty. That's interesting. But what was supposed to be there? VCount is 1. What is the issue? The issue, did everyone get it? Everyone got the answer? The answer is very simple, team. Especially when you're naming your variables, what happens is you can make simple spell errors. And you may keep struggling. Why is empty coming? Is this not a right statement? Am I not supposed to use one variable on the right side and another variable on the left side? And so on, correct? Now, to identify such common issues, it is a good practice. You know what's a good practice, team? Practice is something that basically you try and do on a very regular basis. By default, you do that. Let's say you practice to wake up at 6 a.m. You try and wake up every day at 6 a.m. That's your practice. All right. You go to gym every day. That's your practice. You have to follow certain practice when you do coding. And one of the most important practices is to define your variables. Okay, what is meaning by defining my variables? Defining is our variable is to become more structured in our programming, be more focused on what we're trying to do. Okay, it is not option explicit. It is not. Option explicit is not about defining the variables. Defining the variables is saying to QTP that I will be using variables with the following names in the program. What are all the variables in the program, team, that I need to write? V count, that is the first one that we see. I keep coming to the end. V count, comma, V salary. Okay, comma, V status, comma, are these dots or comma? Comma, okay. V status, comma, V DEP, comma, V DED. Correct? These are all the variables that I'm using. Now, when I say defining the variables, it is giving an instruction to QTP that, hey, QTP, I'm going to use this variables. How does it help a programmer like us who's doing this coding? The way it's going to help us is very simple. It's going to look at, when we go back and look at our code, see how many times did I use the word go back and look at the code, go back and look at the code. Why did I even use it so many times? Because you will have to do that. Anytime you want to change the way things work in your program, you have to open it and do it. And when you have 300 lines of code, you will get so confused if it is all haphazard. When you structure it neatly, it is easy to understand. It is easy for someone to see that, hey, okay, looks like these are the defined variables. Now, I can do something even more beautiful. I can use different dims. It doesn't matter what type of a variable it is. If it is a string, an integer, a double or a long or an array, which will come to later, you can use the same dim statement. But any idea, why did I use a dim v count and then another dim this? Programmatically, this is correct. There is no issue with it. But why do you think I've used it? Because one are program variables, okay, that I'm using as part of the program. The other are my test data variables, which is helping me to drive the test. See, someone comes and reads, oh, these are program variables. Oh, these are test data variables. How easy it is for us to maintain it in future. Now, why did I even put this? This is not mandatory. vbscript does not make it a mandate for you to use a dim statement to define variables before you use it. Now, the good practice that I was mentioning about is trying to enforce QTP to make it mandatory to define the variables before we use it. So how will I force QTP to define the variables? Very simple. I will put a word called as option explicit. What that means is, before I use a variable any time in the code, it must be defined. Now, how this will help me identify what is the issue on line 20? Now we will know. All right, team. So save it and hit a run. Now what does it say? Does it tell me that that line wherever VDEP was there was an error? No, it doesn't. What it tells me is something different on line 14. What does it say? Variable is undefined. Earlier it never gave. Now that I've put option explicit and I've used dim to define the variables that I'll use, it says v count is undefined. Why is it undefined? I have v count here and I have v count here. Now I can look closer. I have double T here. I do not have the double T's anywhere else. What does that mean? It's a simple spell error, but it will guide us to protect ourselves with the simple issues. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll build such a huge code. You've not followed the process or a practice of defining your variables, and you'll get stuck big time somewhere. Okay, so follow your process team. Now let's see what happens. Do I run? So I will highly recommend everyone, in fact, to watch these videos again. In fact, going forward, almost whoever are beginning team, you must watch the videos 2 times. One, to watch it and take notes. Second time, to watch it while you're practicing. Okay, all of these videos, because it will really help you. Now, what did I get as a take home? Just what happened? Why didn't I get anything as take home here, team? Nothing came up here. Is there an issue with the script or the application is at fault? I think the application is wrong. Let's go ahead and report an error on this. Should we? No? Okay. Why should I not? Why? Because there are 3 components to it, team. Your QTP with vbscript and all that you're doing, your application, or your test data. Okay. Anything in these 3 components could go wrong. Okay. The last one for you to suspect will be the application. Last one to suspect, unless you're very confident that your script is correct and your test data is correct. Now, what has happened here? I have not even hit the go button. How will it show me the values? Correct? So the application is not at fault. Do not jump to conclusions. These may seem very simple and logical, high level statements that I'm throwing, but trust me, this is so big because people just skip those simple basic fundamentals and it gets tricky for them later. Okay, so now you get a value. What value did I get, team? 83,300. Okay, now look at it this way. Very important for a for loop is, unless QTP can again execute the same steps, it will find an issue. Luckily, after clicking on the go button, QTP can still see these things and some old values. Okay, so it can still perform to enter the values in here. Now let's try and execute it again and see. Let's put another breakpoint and see if it changes. 83,300 is what we saw earlier. Now when we process the go, let's see what comes out. Take home, did it change? 84,250. Okay, good, run. Now what do I see? 84,250 still. Let's hit the run. Now let's see what comes out. 85,140. So we're getting different values. See, at least I'm able to take different values. Though I have not yet started to read these values from Excel. At least I'm able to change and see how I can repeat those specific steps in my code. See, this is the fundamental thing. This is the foundation for your training. Now we can do so much of magic around it. So team, I want to give a quick break and check if there are any questions only about what we have done in this first 3 days. You can put it in the chat, please. All right. Option explicit, team, just to explain it again in a very structured manner, and I want you to go back and look at the reasoning I've given at detail again on the video, is that it is a good practice or a good process. What is a good practice? Eating healthy food, keeping a healthy diet, maintaining your finances in a controlled manner, keeping in touch with your loved ones and relationships. These are good practices for a human being, right? Good practice for coding is that defining what variables we use, putting proper indentation, putting proper comments, declaring the variables in a structured manner, naming your objects. All of these are good practices. Why is option explicit a good practice? One, you define your variables. Every variable that you use, before you use it anywhere, put it at the beginning of the code. Second, unless you define it, you cannot use it. So if you make any simple spell errors, it will catch it. It will not execute that. Okay. Why am I getting different values on each run? Because I am putting different inputs. For example, if it's a car, okay, If you're in your second gear and you're hitting your RPM to a certain level, you go to a certain speed. If you're in a fifth gear and you hit your RPM to the same level, you'll go to a different speed. Why? Because the gears are different. The inputs to your engine have changed, and that is the reason for it, right? Similarly, for the application, you change something. What did I change? Number of dependents. So if the dependents kept increasing, your take home kept increasing, and that's the reason that happened. If you choose vStatus equal to, what happened? Does it take second option in drop down menu or through error? Right. So we'll come to it, which I'm trying to get to a point where I could explain that. It didn't occur yet. We will come to it. Okay. Now team, do note this. What happens is this. Okay, actually, you know what? Let me explain it. This is vStatus, correct? Now, what will happen if I say vStatus instead of saying married joint, okay, out here, if I say it is 1, what happens? Or here I'll put as v count, then what happens? Okay, this already we have. Now even vStatus I'm saying I'll put it as v count. Now what will happen, team? I don't know. Let's experiment. Let's put a breakpoint where? Out here. Okay, and where is vStatus being here used? Out here. Now let's try and execute. What should happen? Will QTP find a value? What is v count now? 1. In this field here, it doesn't find 1. It has single, it has married joint, married separate, or household head. So if it doesn't find 1, it will give us one of those errors saying that the item that we are trying to use is not found in that list or something like that. You remember? We got it in the day 1 or day 2. Now let's see. Now let's try and do the same and see what happens. Okay. So here's the application. We will try and observe it very closely and see. Line 20, yet to execute. Now I'll do a step into. Now what happened? Why did married joint come? What was v count? 1. Why did I get married joint? This is what I got. Interesting. Let's do another run. Let's go to the next run. Now what is v count? 2. Now let's see what will happen. Step into married separate. Why did this come for 2? Okay, let's do another run. Now what do I have in v count? 3. What is there in vStatus? 3. No, 2. Why is it still 2? Oh, I didn't execute line 13. Now let's just step into. Is it 3? Good. Now let's hit a run. Now line 20, married separate. Okay, that's what is there right now. Now let's see what comes out. Oops, I've already hit household head. Why did household head come, team? The reason is very simple. When we do a select, the select method takes 2 types of inputs. One input is the actual name of that item in the list, the name as is, and that you have to give within quotes. Okay. If it is not a name, you can also give a number, and that number tells, is it the first item in the list? Is it the second item in the list? Is it the third item in the list? Which list? The drop down web list that you saw. Okay. Do a F1 on your select team. I'm assuming it should be there. I'm not sure if it is there. There you go. Object.select and then space item. That is the syntax. What is the syntax? The structure in which you're supposed to write the code. There is my object. Here is my object. Dot select dot vStatus. Correct? Now, object is the test object of type web list. Good. That is what we did. Web list. Now, what is item? In this description, required a variant value, the value to select. The value can either be one of the items in the list, right? Like single or married, whatever you find it exactly as is. Or an index. What is an index? Index is basically a number in the order. To specify the index of the item to select, use hash index, or index values begins with 0. That's what you do. Okay. Now, when I did v count, if it was 1, it went to the second item. When it was 2, it went to the third item. When it was 3, it will go to the fourth item. Okay. When it is 0, it will go to the first item. Okay. Now, if I start the same count, okay, from 0 to 3, now it will do everything again the same way. So instead of here, I can put a breakpoint there and see. Actually, not even here. I'll put a breakpoint here. So I know exactly what it's selecting. Now v count will start with 0. What is the first item in it? Single. So it will first select single for the first round. Then it should go for, there you go, single. married joint, and then married separate, and then divorced. Now let's run this. So team, any questions? I actually wanted to do a little more progress on it, but I'm going very deep into this fundamental, so that's why. I don't mind spending a lot of time in the initial few days, because once that is laid, we can fly at our speed, okay? So just day 3, and so much of concepts are coming to us this way. Now see, married joint and so on. So you have 2 ways to do select. Now, is it confusing? Probably. Then how do you remove that confusion? Keep doing it. Keep practicing with me. Keep moving forward with your coding and so on. We will move away from this application after 2 or 3 more classes. Go to a new one. At that time, you don't have to, you will master it again because you're doing new things, right? All right, so this is continuing. Now it's 4 times done. Now team, what I want to do is look at our next plans. What did we do? Debug, we did loops, we didn't do conditions yet. So we will gonna do some conditions. So debug, we've learned some significant process. Applies concept of vbscript function. But there is another very important thing that we have not done so far. And that is very important. What is that concept? This is the thing. Capture the results, compare the results, report the findings. I know I just have about 3 minutes team, but let me try and take a quick peek at it. Capture the results. Now try and identify the way to do it. How will QTP work? How will QTP work team? The way QTP will work is first find where the object is, then find what to do. Now let's try and see where is that object. Okay, let's take this URL, go to that object and see. Okay, so let's enter some random values just to get some results. Okay, single number of dependents of 2, and let's put 500, 550, whatever, doesn't matter, just a sample. Now where are we talking capturing the result? Let's talk about only one value for now. Let's talk about a monthly take home. Where is it occurring team? Out here, $236. This is the value we want. This is the where part. That is the first thing we need to identify. How do we identify the where part? Go to QTP, open your object repository and simply add it and see what QTP does first. If it doesn't, then we can do something else. Now I hit the add objects to the repository and now I'm going to click on the object. Okay, I get a browser, page, web table, web element. Why is it a web element? It is not a button. It is not an edit field where I can put something. It is not a list, right? Those are the things we saw so far. Web element, any text that you see, text, any text that you see in the web page team like this or this or this and so on, all of these are your text and those are recognized as web elements within QTP. Okay, now when I add it, it will create a new browser, a new page, a web table, and then web element in the test objects out here. Will it do that? No. What it did, same browser, same page, because it could identify that it was the same thing and put something called as a web table in it. Oops. Why did it put a web table in this team? That is the name of it. It is given. Logical name. See, does it even make sense? No. I will call this as monthly. It's easy for us to identify as monthly, right? So I'll call this as monthly. Am I sure that this is the one? Did I add a wrong object? To verify team, what you can do is click on this highlight in application. Click your object and then click on the highlight in application. Now it should be able to do a blink on that object. Now we know we have identified that object in the application. Now what will I do is I will put a statement, a vbscript statement for the where part. How is the where part? Browser IE dot page salary calculator dot web edit, and the value for that is why is it not coming here? Monthly. Oh, sorry, it's not a web edit. It's a web. Where did I write? Web element. Open it, monthly. Dot, what do I want to do? Do I want to put a text into it? No. Do I want to click it? No. Do I want to select something from it? No. I want to get the result from this. I want to get this text. So what could be something that will get something for me? It's not click. It is not all of these. Something called as get arrow property. What does this do? returns the current value of the specified identification property from the object in the application. And team, I will explain the concept to you tomorrow, but I want to show you another critical issue that will happen. Okay, so I want to use this. I know this is the one, but I just want to show you how it will, what issue will face when I use it. Okay, so let me quickly do a one quick thing and then show something to you, please. Okay, let me see. For a minute, team, just assume that this is the correct code. How? I will explain it to you in detail, not right now, because I want to show you something. Okay, and I will print this and say this is the inner text. Now another thing that I'm going to do is take the same values and put it out here. I will explain everything why. V count is 0. Okay, V dependence is 2. Okay, and this is 550. Team, once again, before you start to ask questions, because it is curious. If you're curious, that's good. It's just that I have jumped the gun just to show you an issue. Then hopefully I've not even, this is the first time I'm in fact working on this application, team. Hopefully I'll be able to identify an issue, not on the application, in our script. And that's when we'll learn what's next. Okay. So I've done a run, I've used those values, and I know for sure that that print statement should do good. So if it works good, then the print should come out and give me that value. So let's see if it does. There you go. I got the value for the first round of iteration. Now, next set of value. Let's see what happens. I got the same value. So, wow. Okay. Okay. I expected it to fail. I didn't. It's just the application is giving me the same value. I have to change something else into it every time. I guess that's the only thing. V dependence. If I change it to V count. Okay. Nothing was changing. That's fine. All right, team. I know I'm running you late. So, I'll let you go, but I'm going to work very in deep into the get arrow property and all that. Why? Because this is the one I try and use to explain all about the properties. How are those objects identified? What will actually go into descriptive programming and so on. Okay, that is what I really want to focus on in the next session. It's still giving me the same value irrespective of the dependence that I'm selecting. Hmm. Oh, okay. I think for a $10,000 salary, irrespective of the dependence, it's going to give us the same values back. That's the reason, I guess. Okay. All right, Tim, not an issue. So let's keep it that way for now. Any questions before I let you go and we meet tomorrow, please? As I told you, I didn't explain get arrow property. I have not explained inner text. I have not explained any part of this. It is the one I use as a base to explain all about the properties and objects and so on. Should we put parameter in the loop? Yeah, we'll come to it. So something we have to keep changing and then, okay. Now we will come to additions and all those things. So I think by the time we do the data-driven framework in the next 3 classes or so, you'll get a good grip of the whole subject. Please explain line 7. Line 7, okay, SystemUtil.run. This I explained in the second class, right? It is just a SystemUtil, that is the object. What is the SystemUtil? Any type of a library, utility function that you can do something on. And the method that we're doing is run, we are executing. Then the first one is saying, what is that application? What is that exe file? And which is the URL? For example, I can use SystemUtil.run, okay? .run and say open notepad.exe, or I can do the same and say run winword.exe. Now what will these two things do? Let's put a breakpoint on line 9 and then run. See what you'll get. Difference of date. No, I will not explain right now because we're not yet there. What are the difference between the frameworks? But there is a complete video on it in YouTube. Okay. What this did is it opened a notepad. What this did is it opened a Word document. That is what these steps do. Okay. They will open specific utility files that are there on your system. I don't have to send my email address to you. It's there on the website. Team, any other questions, please, which is related with this? Where to practice? Install. You would have got as part of the welcome pack team. I'm not sure if everyone is confirmed, but there are a few more people who have not received the welcome pack. The instructions for download QTP 11 or 10 and so on. Okay, so you can do that, install it, and start practicing along with it. Give another 3-4 days, watch everything that I said, and then you start to practice, team. Should we explicitly drop any variables at the end of the program to release memory? No. So these are very small. So memory utilization, I'll come to it when you use arrays, when you specifically work with objects. When we do objects, then we will talk about memory utilization at length. How do we keep track of this index? I mean, while testing, how will I figure which item is selected? So what you do is you put a breakpoint and see what's happening. So when you're testing your code, what is happening, you got to see exactly, do a debug, put breakpoints, see what's happening. That's how you got to do. Once you know that your code is correct, it will work for different situations, then you're fine. Then you do not have to really worry about anything. All right? All right, team, thank you so much. We'll send the entire scripts also either by end of day today or tomorrow to everyone. But do note, team, it is good to practice instead of just trying to watch and take my script, copy and put it. Try and write the same thing. Na? Let's spend a little effort, because once you spend effort, it will pay off very well to you. All right, team, thank you everyone. Bye for now. We'll see you back tomorrow. Take care then. Thanks. Bye everyone. Thank you.